Captain Elena Santos stood at the helm of the Starcaster, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the gathered alien vessels. The Galactic Council's ships hung in space like jewels, their crystalline structures and geometric designs broadcasting their technological superiority. Yet Santos couldn't help but smile at their reaction when the Starcaster had first dropped out of hyperspace. "They still can't believe we made the journey in under 2 days," First Officer James Chen remarked, monitoring the incoming transmissions. "The Arcturian ambassador is demanding we explain how we bypassed their sensor networks." "Let them wonder," Santos replied, adjusting her uniform's collar. The Starcaster might look primitive to alien eyes, with its sleek but simple design, but that was exactly the point. While other species had pursued ever more complex solutions to faster-than-light travel, humanity had discovered something remarkable. Sometimes simpler was better. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of High Chancellor Zixtal, their crystalline form shimmering with patterns of disbelief and curiosity. "Captain Santos, your vessel's claimed capabilities violate several known laws of physics. Our analyses suggest your journey should have taken at least 15 standard days." "With all due respect, Chancellor," Santos responded, "perhaps your laws of physics need updating. We've been invited to join the Galactic Council, and we've arrived for the ceremony ahead of schedule. Isn't that what matters?" The Chancellor's crystalline surface rippled with what might have been amusement or annoyance. Human observers were still learning to read their expressions. "Captain, you must understand our concern. Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel mere centuries after discovering electricity, and now you claim to have surpassed our best ships in terms of pure speed." Dr. Sarah O'Connor, the ship's chief scientist, stepped forward. "Chancellor, we've reviewed your technical databases. While your civilizations have created incredibly sophisticated drive systems, you've all followed the same fundamental approach, trying to bend space around your vessels. We took a different path." The Starcaster's engine room hummed beneath their feet, its unique drive core pulsing with energy that confused alien sensors. While other species had tried to circumvent the laws of physics, humanity had embraced them, finding ways to work with natural phenomena rather than against them. "A demonstration, perhaps," Santos suggested, noting the gathering of alien vessels around them. "We could arrange a controlled race to the Centauri waypoint and back, unless there are concerns about your ship's capabilities." The challenge hung in space like a thrown gauntlet. The Chancellor's surface now definitely showed agitation, bands of color racing across their crystalline form. "You would risk your vessel in such a display?" "Risk?" Santos allowed herself a small grin. "Chancellor, we do this every day. The Starcaster isn't an experimental prototype or a special diplomatic vessel. She's just the first of our standard long-range career class." The silence that followed was profound. Among the gathered alien ships, there was a noticeable shift in position, what Santos had learned to recognize as their equivalent of nervous shuffling. The humans had just casually revealed that what seemed impossible to the Galactic Council was, for Earth, routine. "Very well," the Chancellor finally responded. "We accept your challenge. The Arcturian vessel Light of Dawn will represent the Council. It is one of our fastest ships." Santos nodded, already running calculations in her head. The Light of Dawn was indeed impressive, its crystalline structure designed to slip through space-time like a needle through fabric. But it still followed the old rules, the established patterns that every advanced civilization had accepted as gospel. "Prepare for demonstration speed," Santos ordered her crew. "Let's show them why humanity named our first FTL ship after Mercury, not just for the planet, but for the messenger of the gods." As the crew took their positions, Santos reflected on the irony. The Galactic Council had invited humanity to join their ranks out of a sense of obligation, perhaps even pity. They saw humans as clever primitives who had somehow stumbled onto the galactic stage. Today, that perception would change forever. The Starcaster's drive core began to spin up, its unique frequency making alien sensors scatter confused readings across their displays. Humanity had learned early on that the key to true speed wasn't fighting against the universe's laws. It was finding the loopholes, the shortcuts that had always existed but needed a different perspective to spot. "Course laid in, Captain," Chen reported. "The light of dawn is signaling ready." Santos settled into her command chair, feeling the familiar thrum of the engines building beneath her. "Let's give them something to talk about. Initiate Mercury Protocol." The stars were about to blur, and with them, the Galactic Council's understanding of what was possible would blur too. Humanity's age of proving themselves was about to begin. The celebration of the Starcaster's victory had barely subsided when the emergency signal cut through the command deck's atmosphere. Captain Santos was still discussing the race results with the stunned Galactic Council representatives when the transmission arrived, its urgent pulse causing every screen on the bridge to flash red. "Priority distress call from the Helios colony," Chen announced, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "They're reporting a containment failure at their antimatter research facility. Radiation levels are critical and rising." Santos straightened in her chair, celebration forgotten. "How many potential casualties?" 8,000 colonists, Captain. The facility's shields are failing, and they've got less than 6 hours before catastrophic exposure." Chen's voice turned grim. "Nearest medical evacuation ship is the Arcturian vessel Healing Light. They're estimating 20 hours to reach the colony." The Galactic Council members present on the bridge exchanged troubled looks. High Chancellor Zixtel's crystalline form dimmed with what Santos had learned to recognize as resignation. "Even our fastest medical ships cannot reach them in time. The spatial distortions in that sector make conventional FTL travel treacherous." Santos shared a quick look with Dr. O'Connor, who nodded slightly. "Chancellor, the Starcaster can make it." "Impossible," one of the other council members interjected, their bioluminescent tentacles pulsing with agitation. "The gravitational anomalies alone would tear apart any ship attempting to exceed standard FTL velocities in that region." With respect, O'Connor stepped forward, bringing up a holographic display of the sector. "Your ships try to push through space. We've learned to work with it. The same anomalies that slow down your vessels. We can use them to go faster." Santos was already moving, sending orders through the ship's network. "Mr. Chen, plot a course to Helios colony. Dr. O'Connor, I want the drive core reconfigured for maximum acceleration. We're going to need everything she's got." The council members watched in fascination as the human crew sprang into action. Their movements seemed chaotic compared to the precise, measured responses of Galactic Council crews, but there was an underlying efficiency that couldn't be denied. "You truly believe you can reach them in time?" Zixtal asked, their crystalline surface reflecting the emergency lights. "Chancellor, we're not just going to reach them," Santos replied, studying the navigational data streaming across her display. "We're going to evacuate them. The Starcaster's cargo holds can be converted to emergency medical bays in transit. We've drilled for this." The ship's drive core began to pulse with increasing power, its unique frequency making the alien dignitaries' sensor implants tingle uncomfortably. Through the view screen, they could see the other council ships backing away, giving the Starcaster a wide berth. "Engineering reports ready, Captain," Chen announced. "Drive core at 110% capacity. They say they can push it to 120 if we need to." Santos nodded, her expression focused. "Tell them to stand by for maximum output. Navigation, plot us a course through the Carver's Wake." That brought gasps from the council members. The Carver's Wake was a notorious spatial anomaly, a region where gravitational forces created unpredictable FTL conditions. Council ships avoided it entirely, considering it too dangerous for navigation. "Captain Santos," Zixtal's voice carried genuine concern now, "no ship has successfully traversed the wake at FTL speeds. The gravitational shear alone will give us exactly the boost we need." O'Connor interrupted, bringing up more detailed scans. The wake's gravitational patterns aren't random. They're cyclic. If we time our entry precisely and match our drive frequency to the wave's oscillation, we can ride it like a surfer catching a wave. Santos finished, cutting our travel time in half. The council members watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as the human crew continued their preparations. Their sensors indicated that the Starcaster's power output was already exceeding what they considered safe limits, yet the humans seemed unconcerned. Final preparations complete, Chen reported. Course laid in through the wake. Engineering reports drive core is holding steady at 115%. Santos took a deep breath, feeling the familiar tension before a challenging run. Send word to Helios colony. Tell them help is coming, and to hold on. She turned to the council members. I suggest you secure yourselves. This ride's about to get interesting. As the Starcaster's engines ramped up to full power, Santos couldn't help but reflect on how this emergency was about to showcase another aspect of humanity that the Galactic Council was just beginning to understand. They had already proven they were faster. Now they would demonstrate why humans never let physical limitations stand in the way of saving lives. All hands, brace for maximum acceleration, Santos announced. Initiating Mercury Protocol. Emergency response pattern. Let's show them what this ship can really do. The stars outside began to blur as the Starcaster prepared to attempt what the Galactic Council considered impossible. But then, humanity had made a habit of doing the impossible. It was, after all, how they had reached the stars in the first place. The Carver's wake loomed ahead of the Starcaster, a twisted realm of space where gravitational forces created visible distortions in the starfield. From the bridge, it looked like someone had taken a cosmic paintbrush and smeared the stars across the void. The council members watched in tense silence as the human ship approached what they considered unsurvivable territory. Drive core at 118%. Chen reported, his voice steady despite the strain showing on his face. Engineering says we're redlining every system on the ship. Dr. O'Connor's hands moved through the holographic displays, making constant adjustments to their approach vector. The wake's gravitational patterns are shifting faster than our models predicted. We'll need to time this perfectly. Show me, Santos ordered, and the main view screen filled with a cascade of data. To the council members, it looked like chaos, numbers and vectors changing too rapidly to track. But the human crew watched it with practiced ease, seeing patterns where others saw only disorder. Captain Zixtel spoke up, their crystalline form vibrating with concern. Your ship's structural integrity cannot withstand these forces. Even if you match the wake's frequency perfectly, the gravitational shear will give us exactly what we need. Santos interrupted, her eyes never leaving the display. Dr. O'Connor, explain to our guests why humans are uniquely qualified for this kind of navigation. O'Connor nodded, pulling up a new set of displays. When other species developed FTL travel, they focused on forcing space to bend around their ships. But humans, we grew up surfing waves, riding wind currents, using existing forces to move faster than we could on our own. We applied the same principle to space travel. The Starcaster shuddered as they entered the wake's outer boundary. Warning indicators flashed across every console, but the crew responded with practiced precision, making dozens of minor adjustments. Your species relies on instinct over computation, one of the council members observed, their bioluminescent patterns showing what might have been disapproval. It's dangerous, unpredictable. Life is unpredictable, Santos replied, feeling the ship's rhythms through her command chair. Humans learned early that trying to calculate every variable just slows you down. Sometimes you have to feel the flow and ride it. Through the view screen, they could see the wake's gravitational distortions intensifying. Light itself seemed to bend and twist around them, creating patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly. The council members' sensor implants were going haywire, unable to process what they were seeing. Approaching primary gravity wave, Chen announced. Impact in 30 seconds. Santos leaned forward, her hand hovering over the ship's master controls. Dr. O'Connor, Initiate the Mercury Protocol's wave-writing sequence. Let's show them how humans do this. The Starcaster's unique drive core began to pulse in a new rhythm, matching the fundamental frequency of the wake's gravitational waves. Rather than trying to punch through them or deflect them, the ship began to move with them, each pulse building on the last. "This is impossible," one of the council members whispered, watching their own sensor readings. "You're not just surviving the waves, you're accelerating with them." "Gravity wave impact in 10 seconds, Chen called out. "All hands, brace for acceleration." The next few moments seemed to stretch into eternity. The Starcaster caught the leading edge of the gravitational wave perfectly, its systems harmonizing with the natural forces around it. For a brief instant, reality itself seemed to blur around them. Then, they were moving faster than any council ship had ever traveled. The Starcaster rode the gravity wave like a surfer catching the perfect break, each pulse of its drive core adding to their velocity. The ship's structural integrity held, protected by the very forces that should have torn it apart. "How is this possible?" Zixtal demanded, their crystalline form flickering with agitation. "Our best models show this should be tearing your ship apart at the quantum level." Santos allowed herself a small smile. "Chancellor, humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our perspective. We don't try to overcome natural forces. We work with them, feel them, become part of them. It's how we learn to swim, to fly, and now to truly sail the stars." The ship's sensors showed they were already halfway to Helios Colony, covering in minutes what would have taken council ships hours. The wake's gravitational waves propelled them forward, each one adding to their velocity instead of impeding it. "This changes everything," one of the council members murmured, their tentacles weaving complex patterns of excitement and concern. "If this technology were shared." "It's not about the technology," O'Connor corrected gently. "It's about the approach. You can study our drive cores all you want, but until you understand why humans still use their instincts alongside their computers, you'll never replicate our results." The Starcaster continued its impossible journey, riding waves of gravity through space that other species feared to approach. They were going to reach Helios Colony in time, and in doing so, they would demonstrate yet another aspect of humanity that the Galactic Council was only beginning to understand: the power of working with nature instead of against it. The Starcaster burst from the Carver's wake, like a dolphin breaking the ocean's surface, trailing streams of distorted space-time behind it. But there was no time for the crew to celebrate their unprecedented passage. Helios Colony's distress beacon pulsed stronger now, a desperate rhythm that matched the accelerated beating of Santos's heart. "Damage report," Santos called out, noting the strain showing in her crew's faces. They'd pushed the ship harder than ever before, and even human ingenuity had its limits. "Drive core running at 122%, Chen responded, his fingers dancing across multiple control interfaces at once. "Engineering says we've burned through 3 backup systems maintaining our gravitational integrity. We're still holding together, but we're feeling every minute of it," O'Connor finished, studying the cascade of warning indicators across her station. "Captain, the radiation from the colony's containment breach is already affecting our long-range sensors. We're flying partially blind." The council members, who had watched their passage through the wake in stunned silence, now stirred with renewed concern. "Captain Santos," Zixtal spoke up, their crystalline form pulsing with urgent patterns, "the radiation levels at these ranges would disable our most advanced ship's navigation systems. You cannot possibly." "We can. And we will," Santos interrupted, her voice carrying the quiet confidence that had become legendary among her crew. "Humans navigated Earth's oceans long before we had sophisticated sensors. Sometimes the old ways are still the best ways." She turned to her helm officer. "Chen, switch to visual navigation protocols." The council members watched in disbelief as the bridge crew began shutting down their advanced sensor arrays, replacing the holographic displays with what appeared to be primitive optical telescopes and electromagnetic wave detectors. You're going to navigate through a radiation storm using your eyes. One of the council members asked, their bioluminescence flickering with what might have been horror or amazement. Among other things, O'Connor explained, calibrating what looked like a handheld radiation detector. Human senses, properly trained, can pick up subtle cues that even the most advanced sensors might miss. We've learned to trust them, especially when technology starts to fail. The Starcaster plunged deeper into the radiation field surrounding Helios colony. Through the view screen, they could see the strange auroras created by the antimatter containment breach, beautiful and deadly streams of color that would have overwhelmed standard navigational systems. Multiple hull breaches detected in the colony's outer dome. Chen reported, his eyes never leaving his simplified displays. Their environmental systems are failing. We have maybe 20 minutes before total collapse. Santos nodded, making rapid calculations in her head. Time to intercept. 18 minutes at current speed, Chen answered. But the radiation density is increasing. We'll lose even visual navigation if we get much closer. The ship shuddered as another wave of radiation washed over them. Warning lights flashed across every console, but the crew responded with calm efficiency, making continuous adjustments to keep their systems functioning. Captain, one of the council members spoke up, their tentacles weaving patterns of genuine concern. Even if you reach the colony, how can you possibly evacuate 8,000 people? The radiation levels will make it challenging, Santos finished, but not impossible. Dr. O'Connor, initiate Protocol Omega. Show our guests how humans prepare for the impossible. O'Connor's hands flew across her console, and the ship's interior began to transform. Walls shifted, corridors realigned, and what had appeared to be decorative panels throughout the vessel revealed themselves to be emergency medical pods, each designed to protect its occupant from extreme radiation. The Starcaster isn't just a fast ship, O'Connor explained to the stunned council members. She's a rescue vessel. Every cubic meter was designed to convert for emergency operations. We can reconfigure the entire internal structure in minutes. The view of Helios colony grew larger in their screen, the facility's dome visibly cracking under the strain of containing the antimatter breach. Streams of deadly radiation poured through the fissures, creating a maze of lethal energy that no conventional ship could navigate. Final approach, Chen announced, his voice tight with concentration. Radiation levels are off the scale. We're going to lose all remaining electronic guidance in 30 seconds. Santos stood from her command chair, moving to stand beside her helm officer. Then we do this the old-fashioned way. All hands, prepare for manual docking procedures. Mr. Chen, you have the finest eyes in the fleet. Show them what human pilots can do. The Starcaster's engines thrummed as Chen adjusted their approach, using nothing but visual cues and his own finely honed instincts to thread their way through the radiation storm. The council members watched in amazement as the human crew coordinated without computer assistance, calling out observations and making split-second adjustments based on pure experience and skill. "This is madness," Zixtal whispered, but there was something like awe in their crystalline resonance. "Yet, it's working. That's humanity in a nutshell, Chancellor," Santos replied, her eyes fixed on their approaching target. "When the sophisticated solution fails, we fall back on what we know best, trusting our instincts, working together, and never, ever giving up." The Starcaster closed the final distance to Helios colony, preparing for their most challenging task yet. They had defied physics, outtraced time, and navigated the impossible. Now they just had to save 8,000 lives while working in conditions that no ship was designed to survive. But then, humans had always done their best work when faced with impossible odds. The next 17 minutes aboard the Starcaster became a symphony of organized chaos that would forever change how the Galactic Council viewed humanity. With all advanced systems compromised by radiation, the crew operated on pure instinct and coordination, their movements precise despite the overwhelming conditions. "Hull integrity at 60%. Chen called out, his hand steady on the manual controls as he guided the Starcaster through another radiation surge. First wave of evacuation pods ready for launch. The ship had extended multiple docking tubes toward Helios Colony's failing structure, each one protected by layers of radiation shielding that seemed impossibly thin to the watching council members. Through the view screen, they could see streams of colonists moving through these lifelines, guided by the Starcaster's crew. This defies all established protocols, Zixtal observed, their crystalline form vibrating with a mix of concern and fascination. Your crew is exposing themselves to lethal radiation levels to guide the evacuees manually. Protocols are guidelines, not chains, Santos replied, coordinating the evacuation from her position on the bridge. Every member of this crew volunteered knowing the risks. It's what humans do. The ship shuddered as another section of the colony's containment field collapsed. O'Connor's simplified radiation detectors spiked into the red zone, but the evacuation continued unabated. The crew had donned what looked to the council members like primitive radiation suits, relying on basic shielding and speed, rather than the advanced protection their own species would have required. 6,000 evacuees secured, Chen reported, checking a manual counter that seemed absurdly simple to the council observers. Engineering reports they're redistributing power to maintain integrity of the medical pods. We're running on emergency systems only. Santos nodded, her expression focused as she studied the deteriorating colony structure. Time to total containment failure. 7 minutes, O'Connor answered, her voice tight. At best. The council members watched in amazement as the human crew somehow increased their pace, moving with even greater urgency but no signs of panic. They had drilled for this, prepared for this, believing that someday their speed and adaptability would be needed to save lives. Your ship cannot sustain this level of radiation exposure, one of the council members warned, their bioluminescent patterns showing genuine concern. Even if you complete the evacuation, the damage will be severe, Santos finished, but repairable. Ships can be fixed. Lives can't be replaced. Through the view screen, they could see the final groups of colonists making their way through the docking tubes. The Starcaster's medical pods were filled well beyond their design capacity, but the crew had found ways to safely accommodate everyone, using techniques that would have horrified safety regulators, but worked perfectly in practice. Final group aboard, Chen announced just as another section of the colony's dome cracked. All docking tubes retracted. 7,987 survivors accounted for. That's all of them, Zixtal realized, their crystalline form brightening with surprise. You actually succeeded. Never doubted it for a moment, Santos replied, though the strain of the past hours showed on her face. Mr. Chen, get us clear. Best possible speed. The Starcaster pulled away from the dying colony, its systems straining under the combined weight of radiation damage and the massive evacuation operation. Behind them, the containment field finally failed completely, the antimatter breach creating a spectacular explosion that lit up space like a newborn star. Remarkable, Zixtal said softly, watching as the human crew continued their efficient work, now focused on caring for the evacuees. You didn't just save them. You made the impossible look routine. Santos allowed herself a small smile. That's the thing about humans, Chancellor. We don't believe in impossible. We just see problems that haven't been solved yet. The council members observed in thoughtful silence as the Starcaster limped away from the disaster zone, its systems damaged but its mission accomplished. They had witnessed something that would fundamentally change the Galactic Council's understanding of humanity. The Council will want to study your methods, Zixtal noted. Your technology, your training procedures. You're welcome to try, O'Connor replied, securing her station. But what you saw today wasn't about technology. It was about human nature. Our drive to push boundaries, our ability to adapt, our willingness to risk everything to save others, and our stubborn refusal to accept limitations, Santos added. You can copy our ships, study our methods, but that spirit, that's uniquely human. As the Starcaster made its way back to Council space, its holds filled with saved lives, and its systems battered but unbowed, the message was clear. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through advanced technology or sophisticated protocols, but through the same qualities that had taken them from cave paintings to spaceflight: courage, creativity, and an unwavering determination to achieve the impossible. The Galactic Council had invited humans to join their ranks out of diplomatic necessity, but after today, they would be valued as equals, not for their ships or their speed, but for the indomitable spirit that drove them to turn impossibility into achievement, time and time again. Set course for the nearest medical station, Santa's ordered, already planning their next steps. And send word to Earth. Tell them the Starcaster is coming home with a story to tell. The stars stretched before them, full of new challenges and possibilities. But that was exactly how humanity liked it. After all, they had never been content with merely reaching for the stars. They had to race past them, breaking barriers and setting new records along the way. The Starcaster's legacy would live on, not just as the fastest ship in the galaxy, but as proof that sometimes the simplest solution was to refuse to accept that something couldn't be done.